This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. How often do you think about your soap? Well, if you answered, not much, maybe you should. You see, a lot of what passes for soap in stores is technically not soap, according to the FDA's definition. It's full of lab-created chemicals and detergents because, well, it's cheaper to make. Now, what if you could buy natural soap made from natural ingredients like tallow, palm oil, coconut oil, and scented with essential oils, and for just a little more than you'd pay for grocery store soap? Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for just about everybody. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Darren Hayes, host of the Pigskin Dispatch and Jersey Dispatch podcast. I hope you've enjoyed another great episode here on Sports History Network. Now, speaking of sports history, this episode was brought to you by Firefly Books, and they have two great ones for you this summer. For basketball fans, they have the NBA 75, the definitive history by author Dave Zarum, who's appeared on our Jersey Dispatch podcast recently. He tells about the experience, the thrilling journey of the NBA, from its humble beginnings to its modern glory. Uncover the untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. This isn't just a book. It's courtside seats to over 75 years of NBA history. And for the golf enthusiasts, swing into The Golf Round I'll Never Forget by Matt Adams. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. From Garcia's triumph at the 2017 Masters to Nicklaus' miraculous 1986 comeback, it's the closest you'll get to walking the fairways with golf's greatest. Get your summer read on. Grab a copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available online or at your favorite bookstore.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience. And today we bring you the story of Chuck Daly, the People's Coach. Now, let me start off by saying that he is in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame as a coach, and deservingly so. Twice, he won the NBA championship with the Detroit Pistons in 1989 and 1990. And then he coached the United States Dream Team to a gold medal at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, the first one where NBA players were allowed to participate. For Chuck Daly, coaching was the only thing he ever wanted to do as a career. This guy was a lifer, as they say. But more than that, he was a people person of extraordinary skill. He loved people, and it seems that he got along with everybody. And that is a rare thing in the professional ranks. To reach the highest levels of professional coaching almost requires that you make a few enemies along the way. But not with Chuck Daly. It seems that everyone loved him, and that aspect of his career is what I want to focus on today. He was born on July 20th, 1930 in Kane, Pennsylvania, and that was 95 years ago. For a famous person, he liked to keep his personal life fairly private. Compared to many others who come through the NBA, there is relatively little that is known about his childhood or his life outside of basketball. Pretty much every coach who has ever won an NBA championship ends up writing a book of some sort. For many, it is an autobiography. For some others, it's some sort of a memoir of their coaching days. But Daly never wrote a book about himself or ever cooperated with a co-writer to make such a project happen. And that was not from a lack of offers. Many book publishers were willing to publish a Chuck Daly book, but he was never interested in making it happen. To him, the idea of writing a book about his own career and life just felt too self-indulgent, and he wanted no part of it. The only book about him that I am aware of is called Daly Wisdom, which was written after Daly had passed away and was written by his former boss with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Orlando Magic. In both cases, he was hired by Pat Williams, who is a prolific author in addition to being a general manager in the NBA for the better part of 40 years. Now, what we do know about Chuck Daly is that he fell in love with basketball while he was a kid and wanted to coach for a living. And after he finished high school in Kane, Pennsylvania, he attended St. Bonaventure University for a year before transferring to Bloomsburg University, where he earned his degree in 1952. And from there, he served in the military for 2 years and then went directly into coaching with Punxsutawney High School in Pennsylvania. He stayed there for 8 seasons, where he proved himself as a very capable coach. His record as a high school coach was 111 wins against 70 losses, and he cared for those kids that played for him. He took an interest in their schoolwork and their lives away from the court. He was always developing the skills that would serve him well as he advanced to the higher levels of the game. After his time coaching at the high school level, he had the fortune of meeting with a college coach who was impressed with Daly's coaching ability, and he was hired as the new lead assistant coach for Vic Bubas at Duke University. And there he continued to develop his skills with people. As he got to know each of his players, he was able to get the most out of them as he coached each one individually. He got to know his players and figured out what it was that motivated each of them and used that to encourage and get the best play from them. He never treated his players all the same for one simple reason: they were not the same. He developed an individual relationship with each player. That was a hallmark of having Daly as a coach. With Daly on the staff, the Duke basketball team went to the Final Four 3 times during his 6 seasons that he was there. He helped make Vic Bubas the greatest coach in Duke history. Surely, they thought at the time that Duke would never have a coach better than Vic Bubas. And the success of that team led to Daly being sought after to be a head coach at the college level. And the school that came out on top was Boston College, as their coach, Bob Cousy, had just announced his resignation from that position. And this was a big step for Daly, as he was now a head coach at the top college level. But he only coached at Boston College for 2 years, and his win-loss record was 26-24. That was when the University of Pennsylvania, or Penn, hired Daly away and brought him into the Ivy League. But it also brought Daly back to Pennsylvania, where he grew up. Traditionally, the Ivy League schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Penn, and others are not the strongest basketball teams around. Those schools are some of the most respected academic institutions in America and put their focus into their academic programs and not into their athletic programs. However, with Chuck Daly in charge, the school was supercharged. Penn won the Ivy League Conference 4 years in a row, which means Penn got to play in the NCAA tournament 4 years in a row. But they were not just happy to be there. They were truly trying to compete for a national championship. In 1972, Daly led the Penn Quakers to a record of 25-3 and all the way to the round of 8, where they lost to the University of North Carolina. Chuck Daly had Penn competing with some of the best schools in the country, which was incredible. After 6 seasons on the job, he had a record of 125-38. That is massively successful for anybody at the university level. And again, he did it because he took the time to develop those individual relationships with each player and got the most out of them. It seems that at every stage and every location of his coaching career, he made lifelong friends. Now, while he was succeeding at Penn, which happens to be located in Philadelphia, the 76ers had their eyes on him. Pat Williams was the general manager of the 76ers when he decided to make a coaching change. And in 1977, he named Billy Cunningham as the new head coach of the 76ers. And Cunningham's first request was that the 76ers hire Chuck Daly to be the assistant coach. Since the 76ers and Penn were in the same town, it was not hard to set up a meeting. In fact, to make it even easier, Pat Williams drove over to the famous Palestra where Penn played their games. Williams offered Daly a spot on the 76ers coaching staff, and Daly was interested because the NBA is, after all, the highest level of basketball anywhere in the world. Daly accepted the offer and became the top assistant to Billy Cunningham. And no offense to any of the college players at Penn, but Daly was now going to get to work with Julius Erving, Henry Bibby, Maurice Cheeks, Doug Collins, Daryl Dawkins, Bobby Jones, Steve Mix, Caldwell Jones, and Joe Bryant, Kobe's dad. He was going to coach some of the most elite players anywhere. And during his entire career, people have nothing but the nicest things to say about him. Many of his players talk about how Daly genuinely cared about them, and that was different. The approach that most coaches took, especially coaches from the 1950s and 1960s, was to treat their players like chess pieces as they tried to outsmart the opposing coach. But Daly respected his players and took their input seriously. Daly was an assistant with the 76ers for a little over 3 seasons, and they went to the NBA Finals twice. Unfortunately, they lost to the Lakers both times. But when a team has that much success, they have to expect that their assistant coaches will be hired away. And that is exactly what happened. The Cleveland Cavaliers gave Chuck Daly his first shot at being an NBA head coach, and they hired him 18 games into the 1982 season. They had fired their first coach, Don Delaney, and Daly came in and coached just 41 games of that season for Cleveland. Essentially, it was a tryout. If he did well, then he might be given the job permanently. And in those 41 games, he had a record of 9-32. Not exactly a successful audition. The season was not even over when Daly was fired, and the team brought in Bill Musselman. It was a carousel of coaches that season for the Cavaliers. That is highly unusual. When was the last time that you saw a team fire a coach in the middle of the season, then hire a new coach away from another NBA team, and then fire that coach before the season was even done? The Cavaliers actually went through a total of 4 head coaches in that one season. Not exactly a model of consistency. That team was in shambles and lacked leadership at the top, but in the end, it was a blessing in disguise. After the Cavaliers fired Daly, he went home to regroup and figure out his next move. And a year later, he returned as the new head coach of the Detroit Pistons, where he would make a real name for himself as an NBA head coach. Now, let us take a look at the Pistons for a moment. The team moved from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Detroit, Michigan in the summer of 1957. And in that entire time that the Pistons were in Detroit, they had never had 2 winning seasons in a row. But when Chuck Daly took over, he led them to 9 straight winning seasons, including 2 championships. The guy was simply a master. Of course, it did not hurt that the team already had Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Vinnie Johnson, and Kelly Tripucka. And over the next several years, they added Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, James Edwards, John Salley, and Mark Aguirre. Even Coach Daly has been known to say that great players make great coaches. The Pistons spent years battling the Larry Bird Celtics, and they finally broke through in 1988 and began a 3-year run of going to the NBA Finals. They lost in 1988 to the Lakers, but came back in 1989 and defeated those same Lakers. And again, they went back in 1990 and defeated the Portland Trail Blazers. He coached the team for 2 more years after the championships, but the players at that point were starting to get older and some even retired. However, those 2 championships put him on the short list of coaches to possibly coach the 1992 Olympic team, the first one that would feature NBA players. Now, let's just say that he did a masterful job coaching the Olympic team. In a very short time, he developed a connection with every one of the players. With Jordan, it was easy to establish that connection. They golfed together as much as possible during the summer of 1992. And by the time they won the gold medal, even Michael Jordan said that he wished that Chuck Daly had been his NBA coach. Actually, if you want to go all the way back to episode 255, I go much deeper into that experience of Chuck Daly coaching the Dream Team. So go ahead and check that out. When the Olympics were over, he took over as the new head coach of the New Jersey Nets and led that team for 2 seasons and 2 winning records. But then the team decided to go a different direction. And after a couple of years, he came back one last time as the head coach of the Orlando Magic to work for his old boss from the 76ers, who was now in charge of the Orlando Magic. And in his 2 seasons as the coach of the Magic, he had 2 more winning seasons. When you go back and look at Chuck Daly's NBA record, he had a winning season every year that he coached, except for that first stint where he coached the Cavaliers for 3 months. The man was a head coach in the NBA for 14 seasons and had a winning record in 13 of them. That is not an accident or luck. That is good coaching and getting the most out of your players. At the end of the 1999 season, he ended his coaching career. And after that, he did some motivational speaking and focused on his family, and he loved spending time with his grandchildren. It was no wonder that he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. He truly was one of the best, and he looked good doing it. He wore some of the best suits that any NBA coach has ever worn this side of Pat Riley. His Pistons players used to call him Daddy Rich because he was always impeccably dressed and styled. Hall of Fame coach Mike Krzyzewski was an assistant on that 1992 Dream Team, and he spent an entire summer coaching alongside Chuck Daly. He looks back on that summer and calls it a masterclass in how to coach superstars. The lessons he learned that summer helped Coach K for when he took over as the head coach of the Olympic team in winning 3 Olympic gold medals of his own. Daly's influence still reverberates across the coaching ranks. He had given so much of himself to his players, fellow coaches, and just about everyone that he met. Sadly, he passed away in 2009, but I have one more story that sums up Chuck Daly. In retirement, both Daly and Billy Cunningham lived near each other in Florida, and when Daly was going to his cancer treatments, it was Billy Cunningham who drove him to those appointments. Cunningham sat with Chuck Daly during those crucial final days. Cunningham even made the funeral arrangements for Daly. That is loyalty on the part of Cunningham, and it is because of the love and care that Daly had shown to him during their entire 30-year friendship, from one Hall of Famer to another. Very simply, Chuck Daly was one of the best there ever was, both as a coach and a man. That is our story for today. Join us next time when we share another story from basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find short historical posts, and I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care, and see you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Sports History Network, where legends live on and the past plays loud. Welcome to the place where history's proud, from gridiron glory to the hardwood stars, from the racetrack heat to Olympic bars. It's the voices, the stories, the moments you miss, told by fans and pros who live for this. Hook and Themic, the Sports History Network, where the past comes alive. Podcasts and blogs that keep the flame high, from Babe to Brady, Alley to the Dome. If it's history and sports, then this is the home. SportsHistoryNetwork.com, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.